Well, this is 24 hours later, and I've spent a little bit more time on the trailer. I analysed a few scenes, had a few close-ups, and had a few thoughts. And I haven't changed my opinions too much. There are a couple of things here and there which I'll just sort of give a brief overview on now. One thing I want to start with is I've read recently a statement that Paramount Pictures, or at least the filmmakers have made, saying that all flying scenes in this movie are real. And I've heard a couple of people say that. I noticed how they said the word flying, and they didn't say aerial, or they didn't say all the air scenes, or the aircraft scenes and things like that. They also said all the flying scenes in the movie are real. That's very careful selection of words, I think, on their part, because I stand by that scene of the Tomcat being fake, for all the reasons I said in the first video. It has no air disruption, I went into detail in the previous video. I still stand by that. If they are holding to that, if that phrase, all flying scenes are real, is to mean all the aerial shots are real, then they're saying that because that Tomcat scene would not be in the movie. It's a trailer shot made specifically for the trailer. If that shot is in the movie, then what they mean by flying scenes is all the scenes where the actors are flying. Because that shot is definitely fake. And even though in this trailer there is a lot of real flight footage, they've definitely composited a hell of a lot. There's a lot of CG still being used here. And what I think they've been a bit sort of vague in is that they've taken, it's more a case of them taking multiple real life flying scenes, footage of real life scenes, real life flights, and compositing them in together. And I'll run through a couple of them. So it seems as though there's going to be a lot of shots where we'll be seeing single engine F-18s with the iconic helmets of certain characters, because when you look close in some of these shots, you can tell that it's not the actor, but he'll have the Maverick helmet, or there's another couple of actors. When you look, you'll see them in a close-up, and then you'll see them in another shot, and they look just a little bit different enough, yet they're still wearing the helmet, so that they're obviously going to be using a lot of swap outs between real pilots flying the single-seater F-18s for the external shots, with the tandem-seater shots, where I was expecting all the acting shots to be taken from the rear seat of a tandem-seater, like I explained in the first video. But in this shot, there's actually a shot of one of the actors in the front seat, and the person that you can't see in the back seat wearing the same helmet. Like in this case, his name's Fanboy on his helmet. There's this conversation sequence where he's talking. You can't see the first guy's name, but he says something. Then it swaps to Phoenix, and she's sort of looking around. The backgrounds are a little bit different, by the way, between those two swaps. So I'm thinking they may have, there are multiple different flights that they're referring to. Like she may have flown that scene an hour later, or a different part or whatever, and they're just sort of using editing to slice it together. But anyway, so it jumps to her, and she's sort of reacting, and then it jumps back to this Fanboy guy who's in the back seat, supposedly, and a close-up of him. But in that first shot where the guy whose name I don't know, the front seat pilot is talking, I don't think the guy wearing the Fanboy helmet in the back is the same guy, same actor. His eyebrows look a little bit different. So I think that's what they're doing, is they've planned a whole heap of different key shots, and they've just worked it out into these multiple flights where they've got maybe 4 or 5 F-18s in the air, both single-seater and tandem-seater, and they've strategically worked out who in the single-seaters are wearing the Maverick helmets or the Phoenix helmets or the, whoever it is. And then they've also had multiple tandem-seaters where one of them has got the pilot in the front seat and the actor in the back seat, and the other one and wearing the right helmet, wearing the fanboy helmet, versus the other one where the actor's in the front seat. And so all of those shots, I reckon, are real. They're all those flying shots where the actors are flying. They're all in the air. They're all, and they've been really clever with it, really strategic with it. I think they've done it really quite well. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of that in this movie. I think there's going to be a lot of jumping around, a lot of yeah, I think they've done it really well. But anyway, I won't be looking for that stuff on the first viewing, but when it comes out on DVD or on iTunes or whatever, I'll rent it or buy it or whatever, and I'll run through it. I'll make a detailed sort of look at it and see which ones are which. So like a good example is this shot here where it shows Maverick. Like that's obviously not Tom Cruise. It's just some pilot in the Maverick helmet. When it comes to any shots of him on, say, riding the bike or in the P-51 or something, that'll be him, but not any in the F-18s. Like, he'll be always in a tandem seater. It'd be interesting to see if he's in the front or the back. Actually, no, he won't ever be in the front, will he? Because if he's in the front, then that means he's in a tandem seater. So yeah, no, we'll never see Tom in the front seat. Yeah, okay, no, he'll only ever be shot from the rear, so it looks like he's in a single seater. But anyway. Okay, so I'll pick out a couple of shots worthy of note here. That one is real, but it has been highly, highly sped up. That's really aggressive. It's just been sped up. Simple as that. The Cobra move, the Pugachev's Cobra. Now that, well, number one, that is an entirely CG scene. I mean, okay, when I say entirely, I don't mean that they're 3D models. I do think both of those aircraft are real, but they weren't in the same scene. I think, okay, number one, I seriously doubt the F-18 can do the Pugachev's Cobra. I'll just call it the Cobra. Basically, it's really dependent on thrust to weight ratio. I think the first people to do it were the Swedes in their sub 34 or something, and they did it to prevent stalling. There are other people who did it. I think the guy who made it famous was a Syrian guy with a MiG-21, and they were just trying to figure out ways of dogfighting more effectively, and I think he screwed up because he was trying another move, and he accidentally flipped it up and then pulled it off. I think he pulled back and then hit the afterburner to keep the thrust up, and then he pulled it off, and then he tried it again and almost screwed it up, and then tried it again and nailed it or something, and then that became their sort of tactic. But then the Russians came out with their Su-27, and then certainly every Russian plane after the Su-27 does it. So the 27, the 30, the 35, I think the MiG-35. Basically, my point is I'm pretty damn sure the F-18 doesn't. I'm not sure if it's got to do with thrust vectoring. What thrust vectoring is you've got the rear nozzles, and on the F-22 at least, they move on the y-axis, but on Russian aircraft they move on the y and the x, and that really helps to solidify. Plus they've also got really highly increased thrust to weight ratio, so they, like I was saying last night, they pride themselves on that. That's their thing. Like, our planes can do the Cobra, and that's what they sell that's their whole thing, their marketing ploy. So the F-18, I'm pretty sure if they just yank that stick up, they would just go up. They wouldn't actually slow down unless they'd either I don't think they might be able to do it, but just not as easy and not like that anyway. Even if they could do it, that certainly wasn't an example of it, because you can see when you slow down and pause that frame, if you look at the I don't know what you call this, just like wind trails there, if you look at them, that see how they're really straight off the shoulder, as if the plane is still moving at high speed, and then they've just drawn extra ones digitally, like off the bottom of the wings like that. So if you look at this photo, which I think is a MiG-29 because it's single seater. I don't think the MiG-35 comes in single seater, so I'll just say it's a MiG-29. I might be wrong. But if you can see it, it's in complete vertical stall, if you will, and you look at the smoke that the smoke oil that they're using on that is just trailing off. That's what it should look like, but in this case it doesn't. It's actually looks like it's still at speed. So what I think they've done to make that shot is they've simply filmed one of the F-18s pulling up, and they've kept with it, or at least they've grabbed the last few frames before it jumps off the frame. They've sort of paused it and slowed it down, and then they've simply just cut it out and pasted it straight onto the new footage over the other aircraft, and then they've just trailed CG extra smoke off it, but it's a fake shot. It's real aircraft, real flying footage, but they've taken two shots and composited it in. When you move into the cockpit scene, that is I think both of those are real shots as well. But what they've done with, obviously they've just had the actor, the pilot look up, or the actor, he'd be in the backseat looking up and acting like he's seeing this, and they've filmed another F-18 from behind as they move underneath it and ahead of it, and they've simply just flipped it upside down. And I wouldn't be surprised if all these cracks and light glare and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if that's all fake. They've just masked, they've taken the original footage of the pilot, they've masked all this area out, and then they've laid in a transparent cracks, canopy sort of layer, and then laid in that footage upside down, and then sort of composited it better with the lighting and so forth. So again, both real footage, real flying footage, but from multiple sources, composited in. It's also just way too close. Like, there is no way, even like the Russians and stuff, as crazy as they notoriously are, they just would not be doing it that close. They wouldn't be able to do it that close. Nothing happens that close in the air. Actually, while we're on the issue of smoke oil, I've realized in hindsight that that's what was on the poster. It's not, they weren't supposed to be vapor trails after all, which I'm actually quite happy to figure out, because it was kind of astounding to me to that the graphic designer will be that bad, but it turns out he's not that bad, or she. That was actually just smoke oil that they used, because then as I was watching the trailer again, I saw this shot here, and it just clicked. That being said, it's still a pretty basic copy of that first plane. They've just duplicated it again and added some shading to it. And like when you look closely at this smoke oil, it's an exact replica. The way the bumps work, it's just a direct copy. So they didn't try that hard, but it's not as bad as what I was expecting it to be. But anyway. Okay, so this shot is much like the Cobra shot. It's just way too close. So it's definitely fake. As in, again, once more, it's a composite of multiple shots in one. So they're all real, but And actually, there's something to keep in mind. I was wondering when I was going through that Cobra shot and also this one, we might actually be seeing the same plane twice in these shots. Like the one which did the Cobra maneuver might actually be the exact same plane as it's moving over. Like we don't. I'm going to be looking for that in my second viewing. They may have simply filmed it flying and then had it pull up, and then they just simply put it back on itself. I'm going to be looking for that. It's going to be, yeah. Anyway, so this shot, they've just simply had two aircraft flying side by side, peel off, and then they've had another one which they've either shot flying up or they've shot from underneath. Shot from above, and they've just composited in whatever. Either way, that's way too close. I could go into more details about other shots, but no. My point is that there's going to be a lot of CG trickery in this movie, despite them being real shots. So that claim that all the flying scenes are real, yeah, take that with a grain of salt. They are real, but they're not. So they're not really lying as such. And then who cares anyway? It's going to look good. It's Hollywood, it's going to be cool. One thing that does annoy me, and I definitely understand why they do it, but one thing that does annoy me is how they leave the oxygen masks hanging off in order to see them talking. I don't think that's necessary, and I kind of wish they would put the masks on and have them talking, just have them talking and then re-record the voices later, and then bring them back in, adding a whatever the filter would be, the audio filter, to make it sound muffled or electronic, whatever. But that way you can control the clarity a bit more. Because using editing smartly, like say if you've got character one, they start talking and you can only see their eyes, so they start talking, and then they look off, and then they continue talking, but then it cuts to the next scene for the person listening. If they continue talking and you've led them from that shot of the person, so they're the one talking, it doesn't really matter if you don't see them talking, because the brain is anchored to that. And if you're about to have someone else talking, actors are good enough to do it in their eyes, I think. And I don't know, I just think that authenticity, I think I would have appreciated a bit more. I understand why they wouldn't have done it, but I don't think it was entirely necessary. And I guess it also depends on, they'll probably get to some really hectic scenes where they'll be jumping back and forth, so it's probably just better to leave them hanging. But in real life, I'm pretty damn sure they're not allowed. Like, I remember hearing once a while ago that the moment the engine is turned on, they have to have their oxygen mask on. I'm pretty sure that's a regulation. But yeah, so if the day I see that in a film where they're actually using the masks, I think I'd appreciate it. But I'm not going to rate them down for this, because I get it. I could go into detail about this. They've got this whole sequence here, which they're trying to make out, like it's this engine blowout scene. But in this trailer, they've tried to make it look like it's Rooster, or Goose's son, so I'm going to call him Gosling. But they're trying to make it look like he's the one who gets in trouble, like he's pushing too high too many G's in a vertical or something, and whatever. And then they lead automatically into the funeral. So I think through the narrative of the trailer, they're trying to make it look like he gets into trouble and Maverick freaks out because he's going to lose Gosling as well as Goose. But when you look at it in detail, the planes are all different. You see a tandem seater in one, you'll see the different paint job on another, you'll see his positioning's different. He's ahead of Maverick in this one, he's behind him in another one. There's nothing we can really tell from that scene. It's all over the shop. So I doubt, I'm presuming Gosling is not going to be the one getting into trouble. Also, I don't think losing, although it'll be different for the narrative, I'm pretty sure losing one engine doesn't harm an F-18 all that much, because I can't remember the name of it. I think they're called inline engines or something. Basically, the twin engines are so close together that it behaves like a single engine. So when you lose one, all you're doing is losing power. You're losing half the power, but you've still got one engine going. If it was on an F14 or something, with the engines are way wider apart, so you lose that one. It's, you know, there's a discrepancy there. There's an imbalance, whereas the F18, I'm pretty sure it doesn't make that much difference. So, but then again, in this story, I guess it does, you know, because we see and again though, we don't know if the funeral is linked to that particular combustion stall, if that's what it's called, or not. So we don't know. But moving on to the actual narrative, it looks like for the funeral scene that Jennifer Connelly is the widow. At least that's how they're presenting it. She's front and center. She's a little too front and center of this funeral scene to not be the widow. So I'm guessing because they get together, well, at least they're riding on the bike, so you have to presume that they're together. I'm guessing that funeral scene is going to have to happen in the beginning, and then that leaves the second act of the movie for them to get together, and then for the third act to be the operation that they pull, and then he returns to her, you know. So I'm wondering if something in the opening shots, something goes wrong which causes the death of her husband, whether or not it's to do with a Tomcat, an F-14, because like I said in the previous video, they've apparently pulled out an F-14 for this and got it flying again, or whether it's got to do with that F-18 engine blow up, whatever, who knows. But I'm predicting that's going to happen right at the beginning, and then that's going to cause Maverick to leave Top Gun, or the Navy in general, and go to the test flying, where he will fly that, where he'll be all trained up and fly that 6th gen fighter. That sixth gen fighter is, as far as I'm aware, not that I have any access into Skunk Works or anything, but that 6th gen fighter looks a lot like a concept that I think it was Northrop released a while ago. They've got a similar sort of look to it. So whether or not something like that in real life is actually flying as a test frame or not, who knows? We won't know for several years, I imagine. And also the filmmakers won't know either. So what they might be doing is simply just basing it on those concepts and changing them a little bit and just making their own. Either way, Tom Cruise is a test pilot. I'm holding to my original prediction from the first video, where he's as a test pilot, he's testing these close, low level, close release. What I said in the previous video, I'm holding to that. And while he's there, he'll do this 6th gen test and all that type of stuff. Now, what's interesting is when he's back in this sort of Navy scene, he uses the phrase, he wasn't expecting an invitation back. So that implies that he was pushed out. So does that mean he caused the accident by flying too much for being too Maverick? Also, we got to take into account the image on the poster where he's in civilian clothes and he's in his P-51 Mustang. So did he leave and then go into test piloting and then was invited back? But then again, the guy says they're called orders, so maybe he was ordered back. So maybe he never left. Who knows? Either way, I think he's gone out into do the test piloting, and then he's been ordered / invited back in order to become an instructor at Top Gun. And then in the second act, he will meet Gosling, and it looks like this guy here, I can't remember the dude's name from the first movie, but it looks like this guy is his son. I wish I knew remember his name. See, I want to avoid looking up stuff. I really shouldn't, but yeah, either way, you know who I'm talking about. If you've seen the movie, you know who I'm talking about, because he looks exactly like this guy, basically. And considering they've ripped the band-aid off with Gosling, and they've just made him look exactly the freaking same as Goose, and down to the clothes he wears, the talents he has, the how he acts. It's ridiculous. So you might as well just bring all of them out. Every single pilot on that ship had a son, all of them, or a daughter. Like, who knows who Phoenix is related to, but all of them had a child. All of them look and act exactly like their parents, and they're all coming under the wing of Maverick. So, why not? Let's just go all in and go insane on that. It's not going to get better, that's for sure. So when we go see the movie, let's go see it for the flying, shall we? We won't see it for the depth, world building characters, considering everyone lives apparently in this tight little 10-kilometer radius. And they all qualified for Top Gun as well. So the chances of that happening. Anyway, all right, I'll move on. Okay, so I'll leave this video here, because other than that, there's not much I'm changing from my previous predictions. They're still making some hit on another country. It's still a ground-based hit. That is definitely a SAM, surface-to-air missile, which is launched, because it's got some sort of proximity detection, because that's what the at least the Russian ones, I think most SAMs do that. I might be wrong, but I think most SAMs have a proximity detonation, and so it shoots out like a shotgun when it comes near the aircraft. The fact that he's using flares here to ward it off denotes that it's a heat-seeking, not a radar-guided missile, but that could be just for Hollywood, because the flares always look good. They're always using flares. Whenever you see fighters and stuff, they're always firing the flares out. So either way, if it's radar guided, those flares ain't working. If that was a radar guided SAM, like a S300 or an S400, then I don't think they'd be winding around like that. The reason why I'm making this definition is because if it was an S300 or S400, then that would have been Russia, but I don't think it is. I think it's just a short range thing, which is able to a lot more nimble, which still leads me to NK. Also, there's no evidence of any black MiGs yet, unfortunately. So I think that's basically it. I'll leave it there. I could go into more detail over little nitpicks and stuff, but whatever. I might save that until after I see the movie and see it all in context. Either way, I still think that this movie is going to be great. Again, it's going to be there's going to be a lot of trickery and foolery and stuff, but it is all real at the end of the day. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not sure when it's out, so I think it's like mid next year or something, which is way too long. I'm still. It's one of the movies I'm looking forward to, out of all the ones that are coming out. So yeah, anyway, I'll leave this here. I'll do a follow-up when the actual movie comes out. I don't think there'll be a third trailer. Who knows, there might be. If there is, I'll do another movie like this, another video like this. But short of that, I'll wait till the actual movie comes out. I'll do a first impressions video on the movie, and then when it actually comes out for purchase or rent, I'll grab it and do a much more in-depth sort of analysis. Yeah, okay, cool. So hope you liked it. Like and subscribe, do all that thing, and I'll see you for the next video.